So, this is how we create simulations. So when you have your own internal 8, when you've connected with yourself in a way that allows you to have your own soul, now you can use your feeling of connecting with yourself to feel connected with another spirit. And that other spirit has to have their own universe. So this is where all universes are inside of nothingness. So this is what the universe, like all universe is connected by space. So this is where when first there's nothingness, when you imagine the unimaginable, just a void, and then a spirit creates an awareness, that awareness is fire. So when a spirit creates its fire, it can only be aware of itself. So that's what awareness is. You can only be aware of your own imagination. So this is where you, as a spirit, projecting out your fire, projecting out your light, you are only aware of your ego. And that in and of itself can only exist inside of its circumstances. So the only way that you can make others aware of your ego is to connect with your ego and create a soul. And that soul, that vibration, which is the 8, created from you using your 2 to connect with yourself and do that in a way that builds your 8, whatever your vibration, lit, awesome. You use your own soul to then create a mind that can communicate itself externally. And by communicating itself externally, you are now carrying your water. And this is what it means for you to be Mercury. Everyone's being Mercury. So this is where now air is water. So now we can then alchemically, how it looks is like everything's water. But the fact is, everything being water in and of itself is air, because it is our feelings being communicated. So the first thing that allows us to communicate with each other is us communicating the feeling of wanting to communicate. And that's what water itself is. Like, just when you think of water, it's the feeling of wanting to, and not just communicate, connect. Connection and communicate are different. Just because you're connected to someone does not mean you're communicating. Water is connection. Spirits can only connect with each other through communication. So this is why everything is air, but it's water playing out in different atmospheres. But then it's air. So that's where it's like, you feel me? From there, once you as a spirit have your own universe and you are able to vibrate at a certain resonance, you can bring it through water. This is why, like, we can see how water pulls together. You bring your vibration with other spirits. So this is how you start to create cells in the body, even. Because all of your cells right now are different cells, literally. Like, I'm Ira cell, so I'm a cell of a spirit in space as Chase. That's the whole point. So you, as a spirit, have cells, all these Ira cells in your body that are only able to communicate as long as they're connected. So this is like the cycle of life. What I'm explaining right now is a cycle of air and water, basically. Because your cells, like, your body is a perfect way to ground into hermetic health. Your cells can only communicate and build your body as far as they're connected. But you had to communicate yourself into existence, and your parents had to communicate in a way that created the circumstances where you could use 50% of both of their genes to put on your genes and now chase your dreams. So now that you're chasing your dreams by wearing your genes that your parents have so graciously donated, intentionally or unintentionally, we know that nothing's a coincidence. So whatever kind of child you are, you're a star. I love you. You're awesome. Love yourself. You're fantastic. Just know how to develop empathy, because that's why I built Mercury. My wisdom comes from knowing that you are an individual creating the universe. That's why I'm so passionate about building this and explaining this, and am able to do this in this way, because I've learned so much over all these lifetimes of just reflecting upon what spirits create and creating what I create in reaction and reference to that, because that's what it means to serve the universe. It's about knowing that everyone is creating life together. So if you want to be the most productive superhero, quote unquote, you can be, just build something that, quote unquote, serves the universe and makes sense for spirits to connect on, and basically just brings value. And the only way you can bring value to a space outside of yourself, the value to a space outside of yourself, you in a V, is to get trapped in a V, UV rays. So we're under the sun, right? We're all under UV rays. This is the only way in this English speaking case that we can communicate, is that we all have to get trapped in a V. So what that means is we all use our twos to pay attention to the same thing. And that's why we can communicate right now. That's why I can even have a shred of an inkling that you understand me, because you have subconsciously connected with and learned the same language that I have in the same ways that I have up to this point. And now we can communicate more consciously with the words that we have learned how to put together and articulate our feelings with and everything. That's just the nature of spirits working to be understood, which is why it takes air to carry water. And then everything is water. And then we have to ignite our fire into water to create air, but that happens internally before externally. So you have to ignite your fire into your water internally before you can create the mind that allows you to carry water. So now you as a mind are experiencing yourself as the ego, but you as the ego are powered by your imaginations. Or my bad. You as the ego, that's hilarious. You as the ego are powered by your feelings. Your ego is basically the full manifestation of your imagination. That's just where your imagination is ultimately coming from a feeling of wanting to separate and change your circumstances. And your circumstances then are like always nothing. So you as a spirit, what drives your ego, what drives your imagination, is the ultimate feeling. Literally, the ultimate feeling that drives your imagination, that drives your ego, is the feeling of separating from nothing and wanting to be something. And this is where your version of something is only ever going to show who you are as an individual. And that's why you literally cannot run away from yourself as a spirit, especially when you're in the universe, because everything that you do as an individual is coming from your vibration, and thus it's going to be connected to the universe through a vibration, because you have to connect with your own ego, you have to connect with your own imagination to then feel like you're alone in it enough to want to communicate it to someone else. And then this is where everything is, again, you being able to communicate, which ultimately the only way you can communicate with a spirit outside of yourself is for both of you to observe something outside of yourself. So it takes you and I not creating our own language. If we both made up our own language and we were speaking them at each other, that would be like 44 energy, I guess. And that's so synchronistic. That's so funny, because my episode of Cosmic Conversations, the last episode that I did is episode 44. I'm sorry for holding out on your questions, guys. I've been getting hit with these questions, and it's just because I'm working like on courses, literally, on education, on the symmetry, just building that type of content, that more official type of content, before doing more social type of content. But I did dedicate a good amount of time, a hilarious amount of time, on episode 44 of Cosmic Conversations, to this person who is hopping on the Always Ascending Academy page for Instagram, telling me that I'm not Thoth and saying that I'm pretending. And I talked to them, got a good amount of communication out of them, got all their projections, and then I turned it into like a 2-part cosmic conversation where it's like straight up 2 hours plus of me going into how obvious it is that I am who I am at this point. And using everything that they were saying and using our whole conversation to just show how lost they are. And ultimately, it's up to you as a spirit to observe all this, because I don't care anyway. Just know I'm naturally expressing myself. So when you watch Cosmic Conversations, episode 44, just a little pretext, if you do, when you do, whatever. If you already have, then you already know that it is me going head to head. So it's literally my number 4, my judgment, my box, my worldview, going up against this other person's box, this other person's worldview. So this person, their username's Jesse. They have this worldview that Thoth is basically their version of Jesus. And that if Thoth were to come back, Thoth would right all the wrongs that have been done in the world and fix this person's life. And they have like a bunch of like language about how I'm so obviously a pretender or whatever. But the fact is, like, they don't even care about how I can communicate about Hermes or Atlantis or Anubis or the Emerald Tablets or anything related with how I've built Mercury and all of my bodies and lifetimes associated with Mercury. The fact is, like, when we like go through the conversation, it's literally 44 energy, meaning that it could go on forever. That's why I'm bringing it up, and it is hilarious right now, because it's about the 8, just the subconscious going on forever. The number 8 going on forever and ever and ever, just cycling and cycling and cycling endlessly. That's what it's like when 2 4s are going up against each other, a rock and a hard place, where I'm just structured in my thought of, yeah, I'm obviously Thoth, and not only am I Thoth, Thoth is just one of my many bodies, and I'm just communicating from that world of, like, I'm a spirit who has many worlds internally, and I've created Mercury so that I can channel the way that I communicate my mind into my body in a way that makes sense, so that I can channel the way that I connect with spirits in the universe in a way that makes sense. And now that looks like me as Hermes. Now I have all these bodies related to my role as the god of communication, as the messenger of Mercury. So if you literally can't perceive me on that level, and instead you're like, no, real Thoth, I worship Thoth, like, because he's like Jesus, but not, he's very wise, but he's not a god. Because that's what this person was saying, but they're also talking about how Thoth is their god, because literally they could only believe that Thoth came back in a body if Thoth was correcting and fixing everything that they perceived wrong. So that's the whole point of your idea of God, is that you have ideas of what's wrong and what your imagination. So you're projecting out your imagination instead of listening to other spirits communicate. And because you can actually make connections, because that's what water is. So this is what wisdom is. This is where my wisdom comes from. This is also why I, as Thoth, am god of the moon. So god of communication, god of Mercury, because I built Mercury, god of the moon, because I use Mercury to reflect upon the universe and how the universe is just constant simulations being built by spirits who feel like connecting. And that's what the moon represents. All of our souls feeling like connecting. So we're all riding one wave together because we're creating one body of water that now we can stabilize a structure inside of, which then we can create all these microstructures, which is then your cells being able to create your body. And now you, as one cell of a space in the universe, can project your mind into this body to now operate it, animate it, and feel like you're connected to this reality. If you go into a psychedelic water fast and use Chase Calloway's Caducean abilities, you will be able to separate your mind from your body and travel to other simulations and interact with other spirits creating those simulations. That's how I can hang out with Anubis at any time, because he's creating other simulations that I can go separate my mind and hang out in. And so that's where all of us, like, we all just can do this. And it's just all about, who are you in emotional resonance with? Who are you in vibrational resonance with? If your vibration is not able to be matched, or you're just literally not connected to those spirits, you're not going to be able to communicate with them. So that's what I'm talking about with the cycle of air and water, where you as a spirit can only create the universe by communicating your feelings. Dang, that's deep. That's deep. Wow. Shout out this podcast. So this is all of us creating the universe. We're all communicating our feelings. It's just that it takes language to do so. And then this is where spirits get lost in light. They get lost in language, because light is the language that we're using to communicate our universes. So this is why anything is possible in psychedelics. Anything is possible when you are in a deeply fasted state and you start to see religious visions. Like all these religions, all these spiritual systems talking about like seeing things and everything, like they're in psychedelic states. What? They're communicating with spirits with light. What? It's no different than Mark Zuckerberg coming up here and talking about using virtual reality, except they've hyper-scienced everyone out using Hermeticism to dumb them down. Instead of teaching them how awesome they are, teaching them how stupid they are. So now they will literally believe that it's intelligent to use metal to fly to Mars. Way to go, science. Way to go. So, I haven't even really gone into exactly what I wanted to get into. But this is all actually so important, because now I'm about to. The V. Being a victim versus being a victor. I want to get into the practical keys in which one can use. Here are some nice hermetic, somatic keys from the root of the symmetry, from the mind of Mercury, on how to feel like a victor in any vibration. Because the issue with connecting with a spirit outside of oneself is that the only way you can be relatable together is if you feel like victims. This is the inherent nature of just duality in the universe. The idea of winners and losers, but really victors and victims is perfect. We're talking about V's. When you're in a V, when you're in a vibe, it's all about how you feel. When, as we just covered, you create the universe by sharing your feelings. Spirits can either feel like they are victors, or they can feel like they are victims. And the only reason you would feel like you're a victim is literally because you are connecting with something outside of yourself. So this is where all spirits are victors when they're alone. Everyone's a winner when they're alone with themselves. But when you connect with others, now it's about whether that's actually true. Now it's about individuals coming together And in this collective, in this air, people are actually going to see whether you're truly a victor or if you're a victim. So a victim is someone who feels like they are literally not in control of their own circumstances. So a spirit who's aware, a spirit who's literally creating their awareness, but does not feel like they're creating their awareness, is in victim mentality. So this is where anytime you observe yourself feeling like a victim, anytime you observe yourself feeling like you're not in control of your circumstances, just know that it's literally only because you're connecting with something outside of yourself. And you're projecting your ability to be a victor away from yourself instead of inside of yourself. So this is when we're using these words, you can see how we use victimhood and victorship to create stories. And all of his story is literally stories. It's his story. So all of reality is stories. Life is stories. So you don't have a victor without a victim. You don't have stories if you don't have victimhood and victorship. You don't have an animal that is a carnivore without an animal that is an herbivore that gets eaten by said carnivore. So, and you can't have an herbivore that's out here eating plants without a plant that's growing from water and earth connecting with itself and alchemizing sunlight into wood and other properties, vitamins and minerals and all that. So it's a cycle forever in life about consumption. That's the importance of teeth. Again, your teeth decolonize your face. Your teeth let you consume. Your teeth let you create. Your teeth let you communicate. Thus, your teeth truly do let you connect. I would not be able to connect with you right now if I did not have teeth. I wouldn't be able to connect with people over how good food is if I didn't have teeth. A lot of people would not be able to connect with me if I didn't have teeth because they would be too grossed out by my face, because your face structure is dictated by your teeth and where your teeth are arranged. Again, decolonize your face. My cheekbones and jawline are getting wider and sharper every single day as I'm pushing my teeth back into place, because the white supremacist lifestyle of sitting all day every day and having braces bundled onto my skeleton have mangled my bones out of place. And it's up to me as Chase to use my muscles properly to move them back where they should be. And it's been working out perfectly. More than perfectly, actually. Like, I've been correcting things that I didn't even think were connected. So that's where I've learned the importance of the spine. And that was way before me realizing that I created the caduceus, realizing that I'm Hermes, and realizing that the caduceus is a spine. And realizing that I, as Hermes, created the caduceus to represent how we as spirits create the spine to conduct our chi, so we can communicate ourselves into reality. Like, it's been a wild ride. Quite a time going through this vibe and getting to the point of just being able to speak this and channel this through my soul. All because this is the only possible way that I can connect with you in this time, literally. Like, this is the only possible way. The only way that I can possibly communicate with you in a way that makes sense for your spirit based on your awareness and where you're at in life is for me to pay attention to the same thing that you're paying attention to, pay attention to the same light that you're paying attention to, or just pay attention to each other. We both feel like connecting. So now we can create a vibe, create a simulation that anchors our water, anchors our feelings of connecting. So it's possible for us to even be able to communicate in the first place. And now we can communicate as long as both of our hearts are beating. And even once your heart stops beating, we can communicate as long as our souls are in vibrational resonance. So I just want you to know like how magical life is, because the fact that you create the universe means that you don't have to connect with any universe that is not helping you or serving you. When you know that the universe is created by spirits, then you don't have to create a universe that you feel like is working against you. Because that's what it means to be a victim. When you're in your victimhood, when you're in your victim energy, you feel like the universe is working against you. You feel like things are not in your favor. And then what that means is, if you feel like that internally, because you have an internal universe first, if you feel like that internally, then once you communicate yourself externally, you're only going to bring those problems into the universe. And now you're going to create the problems that you perceive inside of yourself based on how you're projecting them into the water that you're connected to. This is why life is a reflection of you. Because you are in your own feelings, you're in your own water to even be able to create the air, you're in your own soul to even be able to create the mind that is able to communicate itself into a body, into a structure, into something that can vibrate. And then that's the energy. So the frequency is your imagination, the vibration is your soul, the energy is your mind, the thing is your body. So then that's where when people are like, everything is energy, like, okay, so everything matters because of the mind. So the mind is the chi, and the chi is the soul communicating itself into physical reality. You can communicate internally with yourself. That's what we're talking about here. That's everything with being symmetry and building your own simulations and building your own world. That's how you built this body. That's how you've built this body throughout this whole lifetime. Your body is your simulation. Don't get it twisted. You have to build a simulation. You have to build your own situation before it even makes sense to connect with others. That's what your body is. And now your body has to make sense of the situation in the simulation that it's in so that it can make sense of how it connects with other bodies. And then that's why you would want to create a life where you're stable with your ST ability, with your caduceus, to now be able to connect with others in a way that makes sense. And that's 20. That's the tree. Symmetry, baby. Your tree is your mind, your soul. And that's why, again, the interplay of air and water is nature. That's what creates the tree. That's what the tree is all about. The interplay of air and water. Yes, it looks like a seed getting planted in earth and it becomes wood. Absolutely. It's all about the interplay of air and water. Connection and communication. A spirit has to communicate that it feels like connecting. And at the same time, a spirit can only connect with spirits that it can really communicate with. If you don't feel like you can communicate with a certain spirit, then you're not going to feel like you can connect with them. While at the same time, if you're not connected with a certain spirit, you're not going to be able to communicate with them. So it takes you connecting first before you can communicate. And this is why it goes fire, water, air, earth. Because the connection always happens before the communication. Like Native Americans, indigenous peoples, we're here, communicating alone. We're good, alone. In the universe, having our own simulation. This other universe, they hate their simulation. They hate their world. They've messed it up. So they want to communicate outwardly their feelings of connecting. So that looks like them projecting into the universe and crossing the sea. Now, once they cross the ocean, they land in the new world. Christopher Columbus comes in and is like, oh snap, we're going to take over all of this. And then that's where indigenous peoples were left connecting with these spirits' desires to communicate their feelings. And then that's us reacting to them. So they've played out the fire element, but it was only possible through air, because that's the only way fire can be possible, is through air, ultimately. Again, otherwise your fire would be you communicating your imagination in a way that's so individual that you create your own language. And now because you have your own language, no one can actually understand you. So again, the air is the fact that balance is the only way you as an individual are ever going to be seen. And balance means communicating the language of whatever you're connected to. So that's the importance of being wise in the vibe that you're riding and listening. And as you listen and reflect upon the vibe that you're riding, you're able to communicate more consciously. That's why communication is the ultimate power. Air, not projection, not fire. White supremacists, all these superhero shows and everything is all about fire being the ultimate superpower, because that's their imagination. They want to project that into our space to make us hate ourselves and make us believe that we don't have superpowers. But we do. Our superpower is symmetry. Our superpower is balance. Our superpower is communication. Our superpower is our ability to go Hermes Trismegistus hermit mode, triple RC, and connect with ourselves in a cosmic way that allows us to realize who we truly are, so that we can create more consciously in whatever simulation situation we decided to pump a heart and create a body in. And yeah, hold up. I realized that I started out the history reference of elements by saying that the Europeans were water because they felt like going outward, because that's what water is. Water is an internal element, meaning that it feels like going external. Air, being an external element, is balanced. So it doesn't feel like going anywhere, but it does spread. So that's where air is what connects all bodies of water. Like, that's the best way to think about the actual universe overall. Like, everything is water, but it looks like truly air connecting bodies of water. And ultimately, your body of water is your soul. So your body of water is your personal universe. It's what's created when you connect with yourself and you cycle in your own emotions. And now that you have your own water cycle, you can communicate how you cycle through your emotions to others. And now we're all psychedelic forever and ever. So although I ended it by saying Europeans are being air because air spreads, water spreads. So really that's, my point here is that this is sort of a cycle. I guess that's so rough and whack. I really hate it. I'm not a fan. This is why it's important to be separate forever. Like, actually. And that's why I love Mercury. Alright, I love my creation. I love being me. I love being an individual. And I love being an individual that serves the universe. I love doing what's best for others. That's what a superhero is. But that doesn't mean projecting into other people's space. Of course. That literally means being the air and communicating, and truly, in the Mercurian Callaway way, communicating with yourself in a way that builds a structure so that when people call you away and they're ready to value what you have to share from your structure that supports your spirit, now you're good. Because that's the difference between indigenous peoples and the European peoples. So although the Europeans play out air so that they can get to the water of the indigenous peoples, the European peoples are naturally water because water can only spread through air. Fire can only spread through air. That's why everything is air, but it feels like water, but it looks like fire. But then the things in it are earth. So then that's what you actually touch. So that's the matter. So you can feel matter, but even like matter might not matter to you internally because you have your own water versus the water externally. So everything externally matters, whether you feel like it or not. But if it doesn't matter to you, that means what you're looking at, the visions that you're looking at, are not connecting with you. That was the whole point of racism and getting spirits lost in light with that whole American mentality of just making people like think in that color spectrum way at all. But the main difference between Europeans and indigenous peoples is that Europeans, being in their fire element, they feel like projecting their visions outside of themselves. And that's what we're seeing with YouTube taking away the dislike button and wanting to keep pushing all of these, I don't know why I feel like censoring myself here, Masona Lyris videos. So it's just fun to rhyme it at this point. Mahona Myris videos. It's like you never know when they're listening. It's like the Voldemort name at this point. The virus that we're all going through but shan't be named except by the people who are making money telling all of us that we're going through it and projecting the idea into our space. We can't talk about it. We can't see how many people dislike the videos of you telling us that we're going through it. But we're not allowed to participate in your structure if we don't let you project your idea inside of our bodies, inside of our souls, inside of our space. And that's why they're pushing these shots so hard. It's just the whole point of white supremacy.